will send out an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true, I will rescue you. There is no distance that cannot be covered over and over. You're not defenseless. I'll be your shelter, I'll be your armor. I hear you whisper underneath your breath. I hear your SOS, your SOS. I hear the whisper underneath your breath. I hear you whisper you have nothing left. I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true, I will rescue you. I will never stop marching to reach you in the middle of the hardest fight. It's true, I will rescue you. Oh, I will rescue you.
Good morning and welcome to our second panel event with One for Growth, Glasgow Girls Club and Thriving Survivors. So that's the second time we've shown that video, and every time it gives me goosebumps at the volume of just the horrible stuff that everything's going through just now, and that is why we're here. So we're joined today by Clyde One News. So we've got Selena, Natalie, and Cassie's here just in the background. She's getting ready to host a charity event today. So she may be able to pop on, but I think she's getting her hair and makeup done just now. So we'll see how it goes. I'm quite jealous as I'm sat in my home office that Cassie did something far more exciting. Anyway, so last week we had our first panel and we covered so many different topics with a panel of 10 amazing women, and we went through all the different things you saw in the video and different organisations doing amazing things in the country. And it just highlighted, we talked for 2 hours, we went well over time, and we were sat there thinking we could actually sit and talk about this all day. The advantage we have is people are talking now, women are talking up. From last week's panel, we discovered that actually, do you know what, it's not discovery, it's just a realisation that we need more men involved too. And that is something that we are working on to try and get a men's panel together. So any guys listening, we're looking for guys to come on a panel. Also, since last week's panel, there's been a lot in the news, obviously, the horrendous death of Amber Gibson. It's always really scary when it's on your doorstep as well. There's been a lot in the military stats about sexual abuse within the military. So they come out in June, July time this year, and we're hearing a lot about what the MOD are trying to do to put some changes in place, which is a positive. But also a lot about public transport, about different abuse and experiences from women on public transport. But more so, which I find more scary, is actually the lack of intervention from those running the transport and also those on transport. It does show that a lot of people just turn a blind eye. I read one article about a lady who a guy was taking pictures of her, he was following her about the train, and then she eventually went to a part of the train where there was 4 other guys thinking they'd help, and 3 of them totally ignored what was going on despite the fact it was obvious, and only 1 actually offered to walk her off the train. They took her off the train, took her to the office, and they gave her a leaflet with a number to call. So I think that just highlights the issues and why we have to keep having these conversations. But like I say, people are speaking up. Since starting doing this project with Thriving Survivors to highlight women's safety over the last month and next month ahead, it has been amazing, all the different organisations and campaigns that are going on and hearing about them. And as StrutSafe said last week to all the people, the abusers out there just now, your time is coming to an end. People are speaking, it's not going to go away. And I think this is what's nice about the women's safety campaign that's going on just now, is this is a campaign that's not going to go away. No one's going to let this go away now. There's too much noise around it, because we all know there's plenty of campaigns, but do they continue on enough to actually make a difference? And I believe this one will. So I'm going to go around the table quickly just to do some introductions. I'm going to start with, I'm just going to go round. So left to me is Ashley.
Thanks, Heather. So I'm Ashley Scotland. I'm the founder and chief executive of Thriving Survivors.
Laura.
Hi, my name's Laura McGuinness. I'm the founder of GGC Business and the Glasgow Girls Club.
Selena.
Hello, I'm Selena Jackson and I read the news at breakfast time on Clyde 1.
Natalie.
Hi, I'm Natalie Goodwin and I am the senior reporter at Clyde 1.
Perfect. So Cassie's still got a camera off. So Cassie, if you're free at any point to jump on, just stick your camera on. So
Heather, it's okay. Just to say hello, just I am here, but by the way.
Bless you, Cassie.
Going on round about me. But, if you want me to introduce myself, I'm Cassie Gillespie and I am one half of the breakfast show on Clyde 1.
Thanks, Cassie. So Selena, I'll start with you. So the main campaign obviously going on just now with Clyde 1 is Light the Way, but I want to start talking first of all about I Walk with Women. So this is your sort of ongoing awareness push. So can you tell us a bit more about that, when it started and what the purpose around it was?
Yeah, of course. So this is something that started for us back in March this year. We all know what happened in March. It was the horrific case of Sarah Everard, which of course is what I think really got a lot of people talking about the issue of women's safety. Loads of women were sharing their stories online of times that they have felt unsafe or threatened or have even been assaulted in public places. And I think that was really a sort of watershed moment in terms of so many men also realising how pervasive the issue is. And we were just having discussions in the office and so many of the guys that we work with every day were going, oh my God, I didn't realise this was so bad. I didn't realise that this affected so many people. And of course, this isn't a new issue. But unfortunately, sometimes it just takes a particularly horrific case that really sort of taps into the public consciousness to actually start having these discussions really widely across society. So it was off the back of that we said, well, why don't we start encouraging men to get involved in this discussion? It's not just a women's issue, it affects everyone. Whether you're a man and it's affecting your wife or your girlfriend, like that shouldn't matter. You should care about it anyway. So we put a programme on air in March just discussing that, and it was just really a platform for women to share their stories and for men to get involved and say, what can I do that will make a difference here? And as you said, it's something that we've kind of continued with since then, just as a way of really keeping it high up in people's minds and keeping the discussion going. I think that's really important.
Definitely.
Selena, that's obviously such a great thing to do, because part of the conversation we're having is that, you know, anyone that's got a platform, you guys have got like a massive listenership across the city, and obviously beyond as well. It's important to have these discussions so that people around have maybe got actionable things that they can do to help. So when you were talking about the I Walk with Women campaign, was that like a discussion behind the scenes, so we can get like a wee idea of how it works behind the scenes? Was that like around the table with you and the team, you know, what can we do to get involved?
Pretty much, yeah. It actually just came about really organically from just, like I said, having discussions with people in the office. And I think a lot of the guys in the office then started going, do you know, this is really, I didn't think this affected me, because I would never dream of threatening or hurting someone, and it just never occurred to me that this is something that still is relevant to me and that I still need to get involved with. So I think that's what we were really trying to push. It wasn't a case of saying all men are bad and all men are out to get women. It was going, no, the vast majority of men abhor this and think this is absolutely dreadful. But it's about kind of mobilising that majority of men to go, okay, well, you need to help us here, you need to stand up. So yeah, it just genuinely came about from having those conversations, and we thought, well, there's no point in us just having the conversations between ourselves. Why don't we have this conversation on air and actually get it out to a broader audience?
Brilliant.
Definitely. Do you know, it's what, so Laura, Ash and I, like we said, we're trying to get a male panel together and we're finding it really hard, because you're right, I do think that sometimes around this discussion on women's safety, that guys are generally don't want to get involved because they feel that they can't do right for doing wrong. Do you know what? It's like there's an underlying current sometimes in these conversations that the guys are the bad guys, like men are the bad guys, when actually it's such a small percentage. But it's bad enough what the bad guys do is bad enough to give the good guys the fear to actually talk. And I've been speaking to people for the last 10 days since we first thought about, can we do this? And it's not that they don't agree, but it's really hard to get them to the table.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that was what we were finding. We actually had the programme that we put on here, it was hosted by Gary Spence, because we thought, you know, it's actually important to have a man at the front of this going, I didn't know this, I didn't know what I could do, but it's just about having the discussion. I think you're right. I think a lot of the time men are scared they'll say the wrong thing or people are going to turn on them, and it's not a case of that at all. I think it's as soon as you start opening up to the conversation and just going, let me hear what you've got to say, I think that's the most important thing that you can possibly do. Nobody is going to do everything right all the time, but it's just about being open to hearing from people that are actually affected by it. I think that's the most important thing.
Absolutely. And did you actually have male listeners like call into the show and give kind of their perspective on it as well?
Yeah, it was really interesting. So we were kind of monitoring social media during the show, and we were actually getting guys that were tweeting us going, this is really interesting, this is something that I have been maybe scared to engage with, or I've not known how to engage with it. And you know, we were just doing it in that way. It's not about sort of reinventing the wheel, it's just going, call out your friends if you see them doing something or saying something that's inappropriate. You don't need to take really drastic action here. It's something that everyone can do, and I think that was what kind of got through to people. They were going, oh right, okay, yeah, that's easy, I can do that. So that was the feedback that we were kind of getting from it.
Yeah, I think sometimes guys don't know what to do, do they? I think that's the problem. They don't know what to do, and I think if they just live their life being, you know, not doing anything bad, then that's enough. But it's not enough, clearly. So yeah, I think, you know, that's a really good point. Like, what can guys do? Maybe educating them as much as educating other people, like in women, is just as important. So Natalie, obviously the news campaign that Clyde are doing just now is Light the Way. So can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so obviously we all know that the issue of lighting in Glasgow's parks is not a new one, and it's something that people have been asking for a really long time, not just women. That's the beauty of the Light the Way campaign. Although women are hugely affected by this issue. It's not just us. We have support from, you know, the likes of Visibility Scotland, who help people who are hard of sight, and running groups who really want to be able to utilise the parks in the evening, who just can't, because we all know in Glasgow at 4 o'clock in the middle of the winter, it's pitch black. So this isn't a new issue, but what's really galvanised it this year is there was a huge petition back in March following the death of Sarah Everard that got thousands and thousands of signatures, people saying yes, please put lights in Glasgow's parks. It kind of filtered away again, and then during COP26, as we all know, we all seen the headlines of women being diverted through Kelvin Grove Park because of the COP26 road closures, and that's what's really galvanised this campaign to where it is now. Women were saying, why is there temporary generator powered lights in the parks now, because there's this big conference happening in Glasgow, why can't these be made permanent? So that's the question that we took to Glasgow City Council. That's our job as journalists, to put these things to the people who are in the positions to make the decisions. Well, why can't we have these generator powered lights? And the answer that came back was that parks aren't meant to be used in the evenings, that is not their purpose, and that the lighting the parks would affect the flora and the fauna and the natural biodiversity that we have in city centre parks. And through our discussions, quite organically, much like how I Walk with Women came about, we kind of said, well, why can't we strike a balance here? Why is it really one or the other? With the amount of technology that we have these days, the amount of eco-friendly lighting options that we have, why can't this be a thing? So we put that to several different urban planners and lighting experts from, you know, really big global organisations, who were able to tell us, no, actually, this is something that can be done. It can be balanced, it can be environmentally friendly, and it can be done in such a way that you protect the natural biodiversity that's in the parks that the local authority is so worried about. And that's really where Light the Way was born, because we already knew that there was such a huge strength of feeling for this to happen, to keep people safe in our parks at nights. And when we knew it was technically possible as well, that's what really drove the campaign forward. And this is where we are now. We've had, the support has just been completely overwhelming. Politicians from, you know, every side of the coin, the amount of women's groups, running groups, charities that have come forward and said, yes, this is a really important discussion that you're having, and hopefully just all that strength of feeling will come together and we'll be able to push for change.
Excellent.
Sounds like a fascinating project and a wonderful campaign that's got a lot of steam behind it as well. Can you tell us more about the demonstration that's taking place that will sort of bring everybody together?
So we have decided to hold a demonstration in Kelvin Grove Park at the Stuart Memorial Fountain a week today at 6 o'clock. You'll all know that today, a week today, will mark the end of the UN's 16 days of action against gender-based violence. So the date's really significant. And we really just wanted to create this really powerful moment where we bring all these groups together that are supportive of this, that are calling for this, and physically light up the park ourselves. So we're asking everybody to come along at 6 o'clock next week, bring a torch, bring a candle, bring a glow stick, whatever you can get your hands on that lights up. We're going to count down and we are going to together light up the park in what will be a really hopefully beautiful and powerful moment, and send a message to Glasgow City Council about just how important this is and how badly it's needed, because we do deserve to be able to use our parks in the evening, and we do deserve to feel safe when we're walking home.
Yeah, do you know, the thing that stands out for me is that the parks shouldn't be used at night. For me, that just sounds a bit like an excuse because there's no lighting. And I think you're right. I think it's a really fair point that when we can put lighting in for big events, we should be able to put it in for the safety of the women living in Glasgow. And it's such an important campaign. I don't know, Cassie, if you're free to jump on for 2 seconds, because obviously Cassie is going to be fronting this up next week.
Can you hear me? Oh, I'm on. I'm
Hear
on.
you? Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, I suppose when I got involved with like the way, I was really, really proud, firstly, of just everyone in the news team that got together and wanted to make a change in this, because a while ago, following the tragic news of Sarah Everard, I actually went on and signed a petition. But just as like a kind of normal person, I didn't really talk about it on air. I just went on and I signed it because I felt really strongly about it. And it kind of came from a background of when I used to live in Newton Mearns, one of the suburbs just out with Glasgow. It's, you know, it's got a lot of woodland and things like that. I know we're specifically looking at parks, but I do remember having to sort of run home, you know, because I was always just a little bit scared and a little bit fearful. And then as you grow up and you become like a young woman and you're going out into Glasgow, you sort of see just like the kind of what can happen when you're like, maybe you've lost your mates for a couple of minutes or whatever, and guys come up and they're talking to you and you feel a bit like, oh God. And I suppose actually nothing thankfully has ever happened to me. However, I just can't fathom when I think about it, all these poor women and men that have been attacked on the streets, especially in places like this, like woodland areas. Like Moira Jones sadly lost her life in Queen's Park. That is now my local park. I live across the road from there. And I do walk a lot around Shawlands area, and it just terrifies me to think that even if it's not me, it could be somebody else that, you know, could be attacked or that could happen to. So that's why I'm getting involved with the campaign and looking forward to next Friday, and yeah, just getting behind with like everybody else. But I feel like, you know, I'm definitely a smaller fish in this big pond of people that will be coming together, because I know every little bit helps with it, but I just mean that, you know, for me, I just think like it's all like-minded people coming together to basically fight for change, and I'm so for that.
Excellent, thank you, Cassie. Enjoy your lunch today.
Be here. I mean, I can probably keep my camera on for the next like half an hour. I mean, I don't know if that answers your question, but I just wanted to let you know why I'm getting involved.
Yeah, thank you, Cassie. So I want to just go around the table and just ask, like, what is everyone's thoughts just now? Obviously, last week we covered the That Guy campaign, we covered drink spiking, injections, we covered public transport. We went through about, I think there was 10 different topics we talked about last week, hence why it went over so long. But just a quick on the table from everybody. I mean, what is your thoughts with everything just now? The positive side in regards that people are speaking up, for as an organisation, from your company, from a personal point of view, be it as a mum or an aunt. Laura, I'll start with you.
I know that obviously I mentioned this on last week's call, and I know Ashley, we very much so echoed each other's sentiments, but being the mum of a 2-year-old girl, this whole conversation is so important as a mother of any child, but especially knowing my experiences that I've had growing up and the things that I've come up against with men. It terrifies me to think that my daughter would be in that situation. So that's why when you play that video at the beginning, it's so emotional, because the words, it just makes me think about Bella Rose being out there. So I think, and we spoke about this before as well, Ashley and Heather, that it's important that now women feel strong enough, and we are strong enough to speak up and say that we want change, and we won't stop talking or asking for it or demanding it. It's so important that we do it for the younger generations, because things don't seem to be getting better with the stats. You know, we talked about this last week, that the amount of females that are getting killed by men, the number hasn't changed in Britain in the past, was it three years? So it's not going down.
Yeah.
Was it more than that? Was it maybe 30? Anyway, it was a really, really high number. So it's not getting better. So now that we're all like feeling, we've got these platforms, the GGC has got, you know, over 30,000 women from Glasgow and beyond in it now. So I feel it's important as an admin of that type of platform to use it for good, to use it for change if we can. And obviously, you know, we've got the amazing team from Clyde on as well. You're using your platform for change, and you know, this I Walk with Women campaign and the movement, the Like the Way movement, and I can only imagine what else you've got planned after this Like the Way movement, and you know, making actionable changes. So I think it's important that we keep this discussion going, and as women lead the charge in the discussion and bring men into it, because as we've said, it's not about man bashing, but when you look at the stats, like the violence against women and violence against men is very, very, very high done. The perpetrators are men. So it's about how can we open a discussion and bring the men who find the behaviour abhorrent, how can they become our allies? How can they be the voice of a woman in a situation with their guy friends when they're being inappropriate? So it's a big discussion, but let's have them. Let's have these triggering and emotional discussions.
Thanks, Laura. Ashley.
I think a lot of what Laura said I can really resonate with. You know, this is something that we need to do for the next generation. I've got 2 boys. I've got one at 14 and one at 8, and I've got a daughter at 2. And if we don't teach them now how we should be behaving, so my boys, we should treat people with respect. We should treat women with respect and equality and dignity. All of these things for me are a teaching and a learning point for my children. But we as a collective, the platforms that we've got, the audiences that you've got, and just the sheer volume of women that are coming together now to share experience and to really shape change, I think that's something we need to really hold on to. We watched as the Black Lives Matter movement really took off and things started to change. This needs to be the same. This needs to be a similar type of movement that gathers pace and really gets people listening. And I think we're on the cusp of that. There's so many campaigns right now. How do we bring them all together, and how do we get men to participate in this conversation? And I do believe that lies with us teaching and speaking to those men and boys that are around about us, and actually having very open conversations that sometimes we're British, aren't we? We don't like to talk about these things. So actually, let's start having these difficult conversations with the men and boys round about us, and hopefully that should feed and ripple through. But yeah, this is a movement, and I believe, like Laura, this is something that we should all contribute to and something that we should all drive forward.
Amazing.
Oh, I totally agree. And do you know what? See, doing the panel, organising the speakers of panel event last week, and obviously speaking to Natalie and Selena, it's amazing the volume of people and organisations and individuals that are all coming together to actually bring their campaigns and their voices together. And there's a lot of things when it comes to business that, well, they do that and they do this, but this is something that genuinely everyone's doing their own thing, but everyone's so keen to come together because there is that common bond that we have to make a change. And doing stuff individually, maybe it's not loud enough, but if we're all working together and we all keep fighting at it, then change can be made, and I think it will be made. Selena.
Yeah, there's not a huge amount that I can say that Laura and Ashley haven't already said better. But no, I think they're completely right. Like we said, it's not a new issue. It's something that's been going on for a long time, and it's something that's never been okay. But I think in the past there's just been more of a tolerance and more of a, oh, it's too big. What can you do? It's just the way things are. And I think that what's been really heartening in the last few months, last few years even, is just seeing the kind of strength in numbers. I think it can be really daunting when you're one person trying to take on an issue of this size, but when, like Ashley said, you've got so many groups all doing their own thing, all working towards the same cause, that's when you really kind of galvanise it, and that's when you really get people listening and you're really confident that change can come from it. And I remember Natalie spoke to about Light the Way, and they'd said, you know, when it comes to just the single issue of lighting up parks, we were going to it from a women's safety angle, but they were going, it's not just about women, you light up the parks, you make them safer for everyone,
Yep.
which I think is really important, and that applies to so much of what we're talking about here. You're not just targeting violence against women, that has a knock-on effect. It's not just as simple as that group of women. So I think it's just been really great to see how strong the feeling is and how determined people are, and they're going, no, enough's enough, we're not putting up with it anymore. And yeah, I think just seeing all the groups really coming together for what is essentially just the same common goal is just been so powerful.
Definitely. I think I did in last week's panel, it almost gets boring, doesn't it, having the same conversations, hearing the same things, that actually we just need to fix this so we don't have to keep having these conversations. And how many years go by that we have to talk about the same issues, hear the same things in the news. Actually, if we continue down this route that we're all going down, then maybe we won't have to have these conversations as much. Natalie.
Yeah, I think just echoing what the other ladies have said, it is about just bringing everybody together for this one common goal and getting a solution to it as quickly as we can. That's part of the beauty of Light the Way. This isn't a new discussion, it isn't a new conversation. Clyde are just the latest people carrying this forward. We're not the only people who have tried to achieve this by any stretch of the imagination. You know, we talked about the petition that there was back in March. You know, Cassie signed it, we probably all signed it. We're just the latest people trying to push for this and take it forward, and we're fortunate as journalists that we have the platform that we have to hold the local authority to account and say, no, that's not good enough, you have to keep us safe, and to bring, you know, you guys along with us, anybody listening to this, all the groups that have already backed the campaign so far, we can really make a definite change, and that it really fills me with hope, because, and I'm sure Selena will agree, as journalists we see these headlines, these horrific things firsthand. You know, the headlines that you read, we're writing them, and that's depressing. We don't want to be writing these headlines anymore, so let's just do something about it, come together and finish it, you know, be done. We shouldn't be still having to have this conversation, but it's important that we do.
Definitely. Laura, you're going to along to the demonstration next week. Who are you taking, and why is it important for you to be there?
I'm going to take as many people as I possibly can. I think it's just so important to make a stand together. So I'll definitely be saying to like anyone in the GGC who fancies coming along. I'll be taking Bella Rose as well, because I think it's important for her to just be there. And I'll be saying to like all like men in my family, my male friends as well, just to stand together, because it is about safety for all. And yeah, I'm actually really looking forward to it. I'm excited to see what's going to be the follow-on from it. Like, what will the local authorities' response to this be? Mm-hmm. Because that's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting to follow up in time as well.
Yeah.
Will changes be made? Definitely. Ashley, who are you taking along with you next week?
Well, we've put it out, of course, sort of all over our social, and we've spoke to we're volunteers, but we're taking a staff team, and I'm expecting quite a few of them to show up. But I'll be going with my family, my husband, my 2 boys, and my daughter. This is something that is relevant to all of us. My parks should be safe for my boys to go and play football at whatever time of day it is. So this is an important issue for everybody. And Laura's right, we should all go and stand shoulder to shoulder. We should not have to light our own parks.
No.
Just making that point, we should not have to do things like this and gather hundreds of people in a park to light it up. So we'll come, we'll go and we'll demonstrate, but I hope the council listen and follow through and light up our parks and make them safe for everybody.
Yeah, So I'll be going along as well, and I'm taking my boyfriend and my 10-year-old daughter, and actually something that came up in conversation about it, and there might not be an answer on this call, it's something I need to deal with, but I'm taking my 10-year-old daughter and trying to explain to her why we have to do this, and why, yeah, we can do the basics of, yeah, the park should be safer for us to use at night and walk through by putting lights in, but how far do you go to teach your children the real dangers that they have? And I know we've talked about women's safety, and it is about safety for everybody. It happens to be women's safety we're focusing on just now, but yeah, how much detail do we go into with our children of different ages? And it's something that came up in the last panel as well, about educating our children about how to treat women, but also about safety and the dangers that are out there. So that's something I'll have to tackle this week. How much detail do I go into with a 10-year-old as to why it's important she's there? And I think it's something that actually we can take on another conversation. It came up last week as well, and we never got to touch on it. And obviously talking about kids in this call as well, we've not got into the detail about how we start educating our children as well, at what age and to what degree. So yeah, I'll let you know next week what we decide to do on that one. But Selena, Natalie and Cassie, thank you so much for coming on and telling us about the campaign. We will all be there next week. We'll keep in touch. On you go, Cassie.
Just one more point that I wanted to make about who's coming along next week. I'm going to try and encourage people on my own social media, especially men, to join us, because I feel like, and just going back to one of the points made about how guys could probably be a wee bit fearful of this, because they'll be feeling just now like they are the ones that are being penalised, therefore they might not want to get involved in an event like this, because even though they've done nothing wrong, they might think, you know, this one's not for me. So my aim is to try and encourage as much men to get involved as possible, as well as women. So I'm not going to just go for the guys, but I would like to see maybe, you know, dads, brothers, you know, that kind of thing, even like granddad if they want, but men to come along just to show their support, because I feel like that will make it less of a taboo subject. If people can see that everybody's getting involved in this, then I think it will really help the campaign.
100%, definitely, because I think, yeah, lighting up the parks is for safety for everybody. Absolutely everybody.
Yeah, that's the complete beauty of this campaign, is it really is universal. We all learned how much we value our outdoor spaces during the pandemic, when it was literally all we had. So to tell an entire city of people that after 4 o'clock you can't use your outdoor space is just frankly ludicrous. It's completely crazy. So yes, it is about keeping women safe, but it's also about making our city parks accessible for everybody at any time of the day they wish to use them.
Thank you so much, everybody, for taking part in the panel, and for everybody watching. Please share this video. It will be up on Thriving Survivors website, YouTube, One for Growth. Laura put it on GGC and as a podcast as well. We'll send a copy across to Selena, Natalie and Cassie too. So the more people that share this, the more people that hear. And yeah, we encourage everybody to join us next Friday. I have got a bright pink hat with a big torch in the front, so I'll probably blind everybody. But yeah, we'll see you all next week. And yeah, keep sharing the message.